This week, on a special in-depth, a look back at the life of Formula One legend Niki Lauda.
I have an accident as an excuse to look ugly. Some people don't have this excuse. They are ugly.
One of the greatest, most fearless drivers in history.
You have to block everything out and then do the job.
We spent 2 days across Europe with the racing icon, just over a year and a half before his recent death in May 2019 at only 70 years old. After a challenging rise through the ranks, the Austrian driver won 3 F1 championships, but a near-fatal accident completely changed his life.
I said, if I look through the rest of my life like this, what are you gonna do?
Post-racing, Lauda entered aviation and owned 3 different airlines, but it was another tragic crash that hit him hardest.
This was a scene which I will never ever forget. It was the worst ever. There was my accident, nothing against what I saw out there.
We remember our time with Lauda, including a personal jet ride to the Belgian Grand Prix, a tour of his native Vienna, and our interview at the Hotel Imperial, a favorite childhood landmark. All that's coming up right here on In Depth.
You come from a very prominent Austrian family. Why did your parents forbid you from racing?
The main concern was my crazy grandfather, who had a very stubborn, strong personality to say, you have to go in the family business. And this particular fight I had with my grandfather gave me, first of all, the freedom to do what I wanted to, and pushed me harder to be successful in a way.
Explain how a bank told you you could move forward with your Formula One plans only to later back out of their responsibility.
I was driving in Formula V, which is a low-key formula, and I had a bank as a sponsor. And when I tried to go into the Formula One business, I needed something like $180,000. And the bank said, yes, we're going to sponsor in Formula One, because we will have more exposure in the newspapers. 3 days later, the bank manager called me and said, Niki, come please, there's a problem. Your grandfather and his friend turned it down. So then I went to see my grandfather. I said, why did you turn this thing down? Because I don't want you to race. I want you to be in our business, and I want you to see the Lauda name on the economy side of the newspapers, not on the sports side. So then I went to another bank and said, could he give me a loan? The guy said, yes, but one problem we have, what happens if we get killed? So I said, yeah, insurance. Okay, then sign up an insurance for the $180,000, then race. So I just made it after my disaster with my grandfather to fulfill my contract and start in Formula One.
Though Lauda was now one step further in his racing career, a poorly constructed car spoiled his first Formula One season. His performance improved, and his 1974 move to the Ferrari team sealed his place in history. Lauda won 2 of his 3 championships there and developed a strong but contentious relationship with racing's most imposing figure, Enzo Ferrari.
What were your impressions of the car, the Ferrari car, the first time you drove it?
Piero Ferrari's son was there as an interpreter because I couldn't speak Italian. And the old man said to Piero, ask him how the car is. And I said, the car is understeers like hell, doesn't work, in my normal, straightforward language. And Piero said, you can't say the car is Why? It is I said in English. And then the old man said, what did he say? A Ferrari is no good? Yes, it's I said even then, to him direct. And then, I tell you, I said, I made a mistake, I thought. And then nothing happened for 30 seconds, and it was the longest 30 seconds of my life. And then he said, okay, what is it understeers? Front end is wrong, doesn't turn in. So then he said, Okay. Foghieri, who was the engineer in charge at the time, come here. If Foghieri fixed this car and he has to fix the car, how much can you go quicker? If the understeer is gone, I said, 0.3, maybe 5.
Of a second.
Yeah. So the old man said, fine. If you don't go 0.5 quicker, you're fired. Goodbye. Took Foghieri 5 days to fix this front suspension. It was completely wrong. We did the first test, we were 0.8 quicker. Ferrari was happy that I fulfilled my obligations. And I tell you, this was the first time where I saw, after we delivered, that he respected me.
The doctors were forced to vacuum your lungs.
The lung completely collapses, you cannot breathe, and you panic.
During our time with Formula One legend Niki Lauda, he drove me around Vienna's Old Town, District 1. We cruised past many of the City of Music's landmarks and stopped at his favorite local restaurant overlooking the iconic St. Stephen's Cathedral.
This is where the mayor of Vienna sits, very nice building. And now we're going to turn into the Viennese main town.
This car makes some noise.
Show you now what it can do.
American audiences may know Lauda best as a character in the Ron Howard film Rush, which focuses on his rivalry with British driver and wild playboy James Hunt. The two were opposites in demeanor, but remained lifelong friends. Though Hunt eventually stopped his drug and alcohol abuse, he died from a heart attack at age 45.
He was a fantastic personality. He was funny. He was a man which you never forget when you know him. To James, I mean, there are very few people which I say they are still alive. You know, even they are dead since many years. He's still alive for me.
As backdrop for the Lauda-Hunt rivalry, the film recounts Formula One's 1976 season, including the crash at that year's German Grand Prix. When Lauda hit an embankment on the notoriously dangerous circuit, his car burst into flames. Trapped in the fire for more than a minute, he suffered massive lung damage, as well as critical burns to his head and hands. Doctors were certain he would die.
The doctors were forced to vacuum your lungs. What did that entail?
This was terrible because they asked me, this is the way to the oxygen does not work. They explained it after again. But if you put a tube in your lung and we try to vacuum all these burns and carbon pieces, plastic pieces you had in your lungs, this can certainly help you to recover. So what happens, the lung completely collapses, you cannot breathe, and the time they do it, you have no air, and you panic, basically. And it was really painful and horrible. But again, they said, as more often you do it, do it. So, but I got the message and did it as much as I could to get quickly these things out of my lungs, and then after 3 days, more or less, I was sure that I can stay alive.
What was the lasting physical damage from the crash?
So all this part here is transplanted. The top end of my head was transplanted, and this part here was transplanted. They took the skin from my leg and put it on. Then I got a little better, then I could stand up. And then there was another nurse who said to me, do you want to look in a mirror?
And you had not seen yourself up until that point?
No, operation, no way. So she got me out of bed, dragged me into this bathroom, and then I looked in this mirror, I could not believe it. And I said, if I look through the rest of my life like this, what are you going to do? I talked to myself. Then I said, nothing I can do. This is the way it is. So I had an accident, I lost my ear, I look like this, thank God I'm alive. I accept it. This is the way it is. Then I had the problem that when I spoke to people, they always looked like this. I had the cap on, because the cap is my protection for stupid people looking at me stupidly. They always want to see what the hell's going on under the cap. And to protect myself, feeling more comfortable, I put a cap on. So when people came and I felt this, look in my eyes, you want to talk to me for Christ's sake. Yeah? And by the way, I have an accident as an excuse to look ugly. Some people don't have this excuse. They are ugly.
After a round of painful operations, Lauda returned to racing just 6 weeks later and would capture another championship the following season, shocking everyone.
I remember with Niki, after he'd had his accident and he decided to come back, I was sitting with him and he'd just been out to practice. He took his helmet off and the blood was coming down his face because it wasn't healed, nothing was healed. So that was Niki. I don't think that would happen today.
The lady said to me, we had just had a report that one of your planes crashed just outside of Bangkok.
What's the most challenging part of your guys' jobs?
Satisfying my boss.
Sanya. So how's Niki to work with?
I leave.
Amazing.
I leave.
Amazing.
You can speak freely.
He's the best boss. Really.
Away from the racetrack, Formula One icon Niki Lauda founded two airlines, but May 26, 1991 would mark the darkest moment in his life when a Lauda Air flight crashed in Thailand, claiming the lives of everyone on board.
How did you find out one of your planes crashed and 213 passengers and 10 crew members were killed?
I was called at 10 minutes to 10 in the evening from the news, and the lady said to me, we had just had a report that one of your planes crashed just outside of Bangkok. So I took a plane next day, came down there, took me in a helicopter to this place which was on the border to Burma, basically, in some mountain places where the plane was crashed. And suddenly I saw some white stuff. I looked out of the window, like napkins and other things on the ground. And as closer you got, as bigger the pieces of the airplane were, because the airplane came all the way down, was spread over 5 kilometers. And then I saw this whole terrible mess. And then I saw the local people there taking rings and jewels from bodies lying around in the jungle. And luggage and pieces all over the place. So it was terrible. This was a scene which I will never ever forget, because for me this was the worst ever. There was my accident, nothing against what I saw down there. Then we went home and I immediately realized what is the most important for these people in all this sadness, losing one of their kids, husbands, wives, whatever, to give them a reason. So therefore, I pushed hard, like to not believe. I said, if this is the responsibility of Lauda Air, that this airplane crashed, I have to resign immediately because I was not able to let an airplane fly safely from A to B. So 8 months later, then finally the cause was out. It was a design failure on the thrust reverse system, which brought these 223 people down. So then I went to Boeing and said, what are you going to do now? And they said, yes, Mr. Lauda, it's not that easy. We have to look now with all the lawyers what explanation we're going to do. That takes a couple of months. Why a couple of months? Do we know the cause or not? Yeah, we know the cause. But we have to find the right wording. So that I cannot wait 3 months. I don't want to. So what we can do is following. Take a 767 up with 2 pilots, exploit the thrust reverse in 28,000 feet, and if nothing happens, then I want to be with them on the next flight and look at it myself. You can't do that because your plane crashed. Yeah, yes. But then make a release now. Because why do I have to have all the responsibility since 8 months on my back for this airplane crash? And it was a design problem, not my problem. So please do it. They released on the same day the cause of the crash and then explained to everybody. So all the time delays of airplane crashes is the worst for the victims. If they do not get an answer why I've lost my wife, friends, or kids. Take off.
Take off.
This is the best way of traveling, no question.
On May 20th, 2019, Niki Lauda passed away at only 70 years old, months after receiving a lung transplant and following complications from kidney dialysis. The funeral took place in Vienna's St. Stephen's Cathedral. Lauda is survived by 2 sons from a prior marriage and by his wife Birgit and their young twins Max and Mia.
What's it like for you now having kids later on in life?
The kids like me very much. Birgit says, if I pick them up for school, which I had to do yesterday, if I have time, I do it. So we come home. Where have you been? Mia says, ice cream with Daddy. You went ice cream? I told you, there is no ice cream. Birgit, hello. If you make me responsible, I decide then what is good for us.
After his race career, 3-time Formula One champ Niki Lauda remained a prominent figure, primarily in his role as non-executive chairman of Mercedes-AMG Petronas, the sport's most dominant team. Formula One is the world's most popular motorsport, and unlike NASCAR and IndyCar, features distinct cars built from scratch, often at costs in the hundreds of millions. Lauda was instrumental in signing Lewis Hamilton, already considered one of the greatest drivers in history. In 2016, we spoke with Hamilton about his controversial move to Mercedes.
So I did all my due diligence myself and then came to the conclusion that this was a move for me, whilst everyone said it was the worst thing that could die. The worst decision, I've ruined my career, blah, blah, blah. And now we won world championships. But so it's quite satisfying in that respect.
Before you signed Lewis Hamilton, I believe you went around the paddock, asked people for their feedback on him. What sort of comments did people make?
As I did not know him, I asked him, is he an easy guy to get on or is it difficult? Because I had to find a way to talk to him. And some people said he's difficult, some people said he's easy. And Lewis did not know me, I did not know him, apart from who we were. He was completely open, transparent, asked me the right questions. For example, he asked me one question, why the hell should I leave McLaren and come to you if you are now 5th in the Constructor Championship?
What did you say?
I was for 10 seconds speechless, and I said, but what would happen if you would win a world championship in a Mercedes? Because you can then prove to the whole world that you've been the first world champion in a Mercedes. And I tell you, I will do everything I can do to give you a competitive car. This I can assure you.
Following our interview, Lauda took us to the offices of Lauda Motion, his private aircraft operating company, and then aboard his personal Bombardier Global 6000 jet, which he piloted himself.
For me, it's the best airplane because it can take me around the world.
How difficult would your job be, Niki, if you did not have the benefit of private travel?
I might not do it. To have the privilege to fly myself when I want to. This is for me the only way. Clear to take off, huh? Clear to take off. Take off.
Take off. Okay, not.
Check.
V1, complete. Positive rate.
Gear up.
Isn't it exhausting, though, to have to fly yourself? As opposed to, after a race, just
the pleasure to fly
going to
this
sleep.
and be completely independent of any airline restrictions. This is the best way of traveling, no question.
After landing in Belgium, we drove to the city of Spa, site of one of the most popular races in Formula One, the Belgian Grand Prix. Before race day, we sat down with Lauda and the executive director of the Mercedes team, Toto Wolff. How would you best explain how each of your roles differ and then where the overlap is?
I am the operational chief executive officer of the company, but it's very important to have Niki because Niki calls himself the helicopter. He's a very active non-executive chairman that has so much experience in the sport, that knows the drivers inside out and the psychology of the drivers, and he's a very important sparring partner for me.
I try to focus only on the priority and try to find the quickest way there. And Toto has to think about all the other things, which is his side correctly, and then I come with my straight approach. And therefore we work so well together.
For sure, he was always there to support after a good result of the race, but the main thing was if there was difficult times or difficult race or disappointments, he was there, and that will continue even though he's not here. He's going to still motivate us to do well.
I think it's a big loss for Formula One, for Formula One community, for the sport. It's an icon that we lost and will be impossible to replace.